How is it already Thursday of week number 3? Goodness. You would think by now this would be old hat, routine. Nah, the novelty hasn't yet worn off. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for joining us here on the live stream. I see Jesse is already into the group chat. Some of you guys are into the chat and on the stream before we even get here. So good morning to Jesse. Good morning to Ron. Now you've got a community and you're talking to each other back and forth. So that's cool. I love to know that there are actually people out there. And every now and then, whether it's a text message or someone in the chat, I'll see a family member or someone that I know. It's neat to hear from my brother that he watches the videos after the fact and keeps up with them if he can't watch while he's live working. But whenever he does see this, hi, Maddie. And then this is kind of funny too. I got a text from a neighbor, I think it was Tuesday, and she was washing dishes and said, I'm catching up on my sports. I'm watching your podcast. You're keeping me company while I do dishes. So that's good to know. I really appreciate that too. But at the same time, we know that people are still figuring out that there is a new show every day from 11 a.m. Eastern time until 1 p. Eastern time, or when we're talking Texas time, it's 10 a to noon. And so we're just trying to spread the word still. And that's half the challenge, I think, when it comes to launching something new or jumping into a new project. It really is about letting people know that they have another option. And so even as I face some uncertainty, I'll even mention doubt, discouragement, wondering if this is a space that I fit into, or wondering if this is a new challenge or venture that fits my skill set. It is really neat to see those of you who jump into the live stream, or to hear from people I know personally who have taken the time to watch and or listen. And I do love that part. Don't ever, ever, ever underestimate my love for radio and the theater of the mind. And so when people write to me or post on our social media and they let me know or let us know that they actually listen to the podcast, whether it's late at night, whether it's while they're driving, I love that part too, because that's actually what I do with some of the podcasts that I pay attention to. I will generally listen to them while I'm driving or while I'm exercising, or goodness, while I'm doing dishes, something along those lines. And I actually do really prefer still, just like Major League Baseball play-by-play, I still prefer to listen and don't necessarily need to watch. So there's a lot of that going on. According to my new bosses, Corey and also Stephanie, the national sales manager who's been here on the show, they believe the show is doing well. No, that's not the term they use, but that we're doing well to start out. It's only in the middle of the second or third week, so we're only about 2.5 weeks in. Football season hasn't even started yet. But I have a pretty high standard, and just yesterday I was talking to my husband about the whole process, and gosh, what if this doesn't work? I even asked Zach, like, how long until you feel like, or we feel like we've actually hit our stride and we can see some of the returns of the whole process. And it's a slow burn. So I'm going to continue to think of myself and the show as the little engine that could. Even though you feel like I'd be too old to be a little engine, but whatevs. We're never too old to learn new skills, right? So happy Thursday to you. Thank you so much for finding our YouTube channel and subscribing. I don't know if subscriptions give me more job security. I'm not sure it's that cut and dried, but I do appreciate seeing people jump on and subscribe as well. Though obviously you don't need to watch or you don't need to subscribe to watch. You actually don't need to watch either. You can listen, but however you consume, however you hang out with us, we're glad to have you. I do appreciate each and every person now because they're counted individually. Isn't that crazy? The way that views and traffic and downloads and likes and all of those types of things, clicks, they can be measured now to the man or to the woman, which means they're monitored on a regular basis. And so that's one way that you can look at the metrics and determine whether or not a show or a product is successful. But there are other ways too, as my bosses have told me, they got to be able to sell the advertising. And that really is the bottom line. It's the bottom line for every product that you see on TV or listen to on the radio or that you stream. It's always about the advertising. The content itself can be flat out amazing. It can be trailblazing. It can be unique and unlike anything else in the space. But if advertisers and corporate partners aren't on board, well, then it's probably not going to last. So that's really the trick. So I'm going to remain hopeful because that's kind of me and believe that if we build it, you all will show up in droves. And so here we go. We're just going to keep going through week number 3. I'm glad to have you with us here on All In. You can also check out our social media. We would love to connect with you on Twix at A-Law Radio. I also actually was able to change. So I have a secondary Twix account. It's usually been about show material and show content. And it was started in conjunction with my previous network radio show, but I've actually been able to rebrand it. So you can't do that on Facebook, which is why the Facebook page remains After Hours with Amy Lawrence. But the banner, if it makes you feel better, the banner is All In. So on my other Twix account, it actually is now titled All In with Amy Lawrence. And so if you search, you might be able to see some of these various accounts that come up. And same thing on Instagram and TikTok. All In with Amy Lawrence will get you where you want to go. And so, yes, slowly, steadily, we are hiking up the mountain. To use a hiking metaphor, because that's one of the outdoor activities that appeals to me, just not when it's 105 degrees in the middle of August in Texas or actually Oklahoma. We are headed to Oklahoma this weekend. My husband and I are going to take that quick road trip. But 8 hours doesn't seem that long for us anymore. We're pretty good at road trips. So we're going up to Oklahoma because I've got some friends there that I've known going back to my days, which I lived in both Woodward out near the Panhandle as well as Oklahoma City. And they're moving, and so they could use some extra hands, which is one thing. But another reason we're going is because they're my friends' parents are into their 90s and they're dealing with some health challenges, of course, as most people are in their 90s. And because my friends are moving in with them, it's a good opportunity to see them. I haven't seen them since they celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary, and they're getting close now to 70. And so it's really important for me to get to meet or to see them, for my husband to be able to meet them, because they couldn't make it to the wedding. So when we got married, we did invite them, but they couldn't make it. I lived with them for a while I was in Oklahoma, and funny enough, it wasn't just me, it was my cat as well. We just moved right into their house when I was in between jobs and living situations. So we're taking that quick road trip up to the Sooner State, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them. But my husband was looking at the weather. So here I am lamenting the fact that in Texas right now, at least in our part of Texas, which is Houston area, College Station area, it's triple digit temperatures, which are on the forecast as far as the eye can see. Now, that doesn't include real feels. The real feels with the humidity, which is relatively thick in the Houston area. We're not that far from the coast, but it's just humidity. I would rather take 120 without the humidity than 105 with, but we don't get the choice here. So the real feels in the afternoons are routinely 115. Well, routinely. They'll get up to 109, 110 on a particularly spicy day. It will be 114, 115. I've seen 116. And so that is what we are dealing with here in August. But actually, as he looked at the forecast for Oklahoma, the temperature is 106 where we're going over the weekend. So I'm pretty sure that my friend has a pool. I'm not sure we'll have the opportunity to jump in, considering that we're going to be busy moving. But here's one of my favorite adages, one of the lines that I'll repeat. I don't know that it's cliche. I feel like that cliche's got a different type of a connotation to it, but they always say, whoever they are, the best friends in life are the ones that help you move. And so I determined a long time ago that if a friend needed help moving, or a family member, of course, that I would show up to do it. So we convinced my friends that it's fine. We don't care about the house being messy. We just want to be there and help them move and spend some time with them and try to support and encourage them. So, yes, it's even more of a thing, and I feel like it's even more of the underscore. The best friends are the ones that help you move when it's 106 degrees. So let's amend that a little bit. So when I get back to you on Monday, whoa, I may look a little different. Like I did not spend the weekend relaxing and recovering, but totally worth it to see some friends. And I do love road trips. I get itchy after a while if I don't have a road trip on the calendar and haven't been on a road trip in a while. And I think our last one was mid-June. So yeah, starting to feel the itch, if you will. Thanks again for joining us. All In with Amy Lawrence. That's pretty much how I do life, is all in. The news broke about one of the stories that we have been following over the last couple of weeks. In fact, I've mentioned it multiple times here on the show, but coincidentally was talking about the Buccaneers yesterday on our Hump Day show, our Hump Show, Hump Day. And we were going through just some of the contrast between Baker Mayfield and Fernando Mendoza, and how Baker is all business and Fernando is all exuberance, and about the situations that they're in, right? How they're approaching it, the stages they are in their careers. I really appreciated the contrast. That's a separate clip on the YouTube channel. You can go and you can find it from our Wednesday show. I did share it on both Twix and Facebook earlier today, trying to drop stuff in where I feel like people might find it. Anyway, in that clip and on yesterday's show, I mentioned that there's a lot of transition around the Buccaneers. They've got some very different faces along their O-line, in their receiving core. And then I mentioned that they've got this challenge of their best defender asking for a trade because he wasn't happy with the amount of money he is set to make in 2026. You know the name Vita Vea. Of course, teams reached out to the Buccaneers to ask if they would consider trading Vita. And Jason Light, the general manager, had essentially said, nope, non-starter. We are not interested in trading away Vita. And so he'd requested one. It wasn't going to work out. They know he's unique in what he does. And so now they've managed to come to a place where, at least for 2026, they don't have to deal with trade requests and they can slam down the phone whenever they get a call from another team. So Vita and his agent were able to reach an agreement with the Buccaneers. The terms that are reported, 1-year extension. So we're not talking about long-term here. We're talking about just a raise. Just a raise for this season, where he goes from 18 million that he was supposed to make in this upcoming campaign to 24 million. Okay. So he's able to add an extra $6 million, which is guaranteed once you start the season. Whatever money you're owed for that season, barring some violation of rules or suspension, there's a certain point at which that money kicks in, and that money is guaranteed to you. Now, you get the game checks, obviously, and so there are different ways that the contract is divided up and delineated, but there is money, especially if it's written into your contract that way, that the second the season starts or you begin work on a new season, that money is guaranteed. So he'll make extra $6 million in 2026. And then he's got money that's also added on to next season. So you're, again, not talking about long-term extension. You're talking about money that's put into his current contract. So we're not looking yet at the future with Vita Vea and the Buccaneers. What we're talking about is this season a raise and then some money added to next season as well. And so they're able to at least keep that very important player happy for the now, but also protect themselves too, because Vita is 31. And while he is an awesome defensive tackle, and he really changes what offensive lines can do against the Buccaneers front. He is a space eater, but he's also got great explosiveness. I mean, this is a guy that they tried to build around in Tampa. So to be able to keep him in place and keep him happy for this year and next year, where he'll be into probably 33, right? Depending, I'd have to look and see when his birthday was, but going into, say, the 28 season, he would be 33. And so then you want to be careful. Maybe you're hedging your bets as a team when it comes to the type of mileage of players had. Oh, dear. Talking with my hands. The type of mileage of players had on him. But at this point in the season, Vita doesn't really want to start over somewhere else. This is more of, I think, a negotiating ploy. And obviously, the Bucs were not interested in letting him go. So happy that those two came to a compromise. What do they, talking about they again, what do they say about compromises, or just generally compromises are when neither side is happy? And I actually don't love that definition. Sometimes I think that's kind of crappy if each party walks away not feeling good about what just happened. But if you look at it a different way, neither party got everything that he or she wanted. So a compromise means each party had to give a little. Each side had to give up something that maybe was important, but they could live without. And a compromise, this is great, meets the two parties in the middle. Oh, I got to put it up here. The two parties meet in the middle. And so each side walks away getting some of what they want, maybe not all of what they want, and yet there's a contentment there. So congratulations to Vita and the Bucs on what they've done for the here and now, as well as having a little bit of job security or more job security. Maybe they don't have to go through this again next offseason, but maybe they do, since he would just have the 1 year left on his deal. Again, good morning to you. Love the fact that there's so many of you who are jumping into our chat and our stream. And I do think it's fun too that when I go back and watch, or when other people go back and watch the live stream, which is no longer live at that point, when they go back and they watch it after the fact, well, then you can see the comments pop up too. I actually don't know if you, I think probably not. Just common sense would mean that you can't weigh in on the live stream group chat once the live stream is done and we're stopped recording. But of course, you can always send your comments.
You can. I'm sorry. I was just going to add, if you do comment though, it won't show up in the feed over there, but it will show up underneath the live stream video still.
Gotcha. Okay, so Zach the Voice God lets us know how it goes. And while we're talking about the comment, Zach, if you want to have that one ready that we found. So I was just admitting to you to start the show that I was feeling a little bit of doubt and some uncertainty, and even wondering aloud to my husband, like, what if this doesn't work? And what if we don't find the same connection and are able to build this show the way that I did with my last show over the course of nearly 13 years. And he's very encouraging, of course, and he's trying to remind me that sometimes building, when you're putting down the foundation, it can take some time. But he also reminded me of last week when we had Pete Souza on the show, who is part of the Rogue Media Network family and also had to start at the very, very beginning. And Zach even said to me on Wednesday, yeah, when Pete started, well, it was kind of crickets, and he's built this amazing community and connection with people. And now his show gets a ton of traffic and is very popular. So I want to be like Pete Souza. But when Pete was on our show last week, it just reminded me why I do what I do. And, just telling the story of going back to my days doing late night radio for ESPN, when he would listen, when he was still struggling with the alcohol and the drugs, and that it was a bright light. The show was a bright light for him. The energy and the joy were bright lights for him. So that meant more to me than I could possibly express. Just again, reminding me why I love radio and why it's my first love, and why it's so important, I think, to continue to bring joy and hope and also energy and enthusiasm. So then, as I was asking some of the similar questions yesterday, I came across this post on our YouTube channel. Now, this happened to be a post on another video, so a clip. It wasn't on the live stream. But Peter, I just want to say, this meant so much to me on Wednesday, because I agree with you. I'm kind of skeptical still, wondering if I can carve out a niche in this space in the YouTube universe, because it's enormous, it's immense. There are so many different shows. Just as I go to share clips or to promote the show on my own social, the other people I follow, everyone's promoting their own stuff. And YouTube is relatively crowded, though thankfully, I've never quite fit in and I've been very different my whole career. So I hope that's the case with our new YouTube show. But I love that he points out that you can enjoy the show as a podcast, and that now he is coming around and likes the format, and also kind of neat that he encourages other fans to jump on board. And I know we haven't even gotten to football season and a lot more traffic. Always, when it comes to sports talk, you see it during football season. But thank you, Peter. I just want you to know, whenever you listen to the podcast with your coffee and you feel like you have found the right formula there, I am so grateful, because that really encouraged me on Wednesday when I was feeling a little bit of doubt and discouragement. So thank you again to those of you who've already weighed in. Whether you know me personally or you don't, it really means a lot to me. All right, coming up. They were the revelation of the college football season last fall. Texas A&M was perfect until the Aggies ran into the Longhorns, which my husband likes to point out is always their nemesis. The voice of the fighting Texas Aggies, I want to make sure I get that right, because in Texas, you got to be careful how you say it. The voice of the fighting Aggies is also an award-winning broadcaster, and he will join us here next. All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Providence. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to CentralTexasCattleBaronsBall.org.
Enjoy Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Thank you again for hanging out with us here. All In with Amy Lawrence. I'd see more of your comments. I love the fact that you all are exchanging pleasantries and getting to know one another in our group chat during the live stream. Good stuff. So we're glad to have you with us on this Thursday and really excited to welcome our next guest. He is the voice of the Fightin' Aggies, and he and I have known each other for quite a while because before he was with the Aggies, he was with the Spurs for a long time and was a guest on my previous show. So Andrew Monaco, we are so glad to have you here on this Thursday. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. And this world is better when Amy's on and we get to listen to you. Howdy, neighbor.
Hello. It's so funny because every time I'm in College Station to do grocery shopping or my husband's got some medical stuff up there too, I always think of you. Like, I wonder how close I am to Andrew and where he is in this city.
I'm going to send you the address so you can just drop the pin and you can come by before you're doing all those things.
Nice. Well, I was just lamenting a little bit this August, as it were, here in the great state of Texas and how I don't know that I'll ever adjust, but I've also noticed I go outside a lot less. So people keep asking me, have you acclimated? What does that mean? How does one acclimate to this heat?
Nah, I don't know. You're talking to someone who, before he moved to San Antonio and here to college, I was in Orlando, so I never had to press a shirt, Amy. The wrinkles just magically came out. Yes. So, no, having grown up in Pennsylvania, I got out of the Northeast and I've never gone back. So I guess it's just, you just know that fall will hit sometime around November. You just have to realize it.
All right, never mind. Can we get rid of Andrew? Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Oh, Zach.
Yeah, once it gets its grip, it doesn't let go. That's for sure.
Oh, my goodness. So I kind of feel like, and people have said this to me too, is that Texas makes you tougher. The weather, the critters, Texas makes you tougher. So I can imagine that works for a lot of the football teams too. How often are the Aggies outside? Do they ever spend time inside so that they're not in the extreme heat?
No, here's what's interesting. Last year, Mike Elko asked the team, do you want to practice more in the indoors? And the team said no. They wanted to be outdoors. Yeah, they practice outdoors a lot. Now, they're very smart. Obviously, with this heat, you have to be really careful. The hydration is a big part of it. And it always has been, but it's, at the forefront now. But yeah, like a lot of times they'll warm up in the indoor and then they're on the outdoor for the 2.5 hours of camp. And again, let's be honest, Missouri State's going to be at 6, and it gets hot there. Arizona State in week 2 is 11 o'clock, which really surprised me because we try to keep those September games at as much at night as possible, but TV dictates your start times. But no, it's the players who have said they want to be outside, and Mike took that as a very good sign for that team.
And it's so much about the technology now, too, the way they monitor players, whether they take those baseline types of readings with their hearts and all that kind of stuff. And then they have the technology that can let the trainers and the athletic training staff know if something's going wrong. So that is one benefit. But I know it's a lot of hoops for these guys to jump through, too, where they're constantly being monitored and everybody can follow what's going on with their biometrics.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of technology, right? You can find it. You don't have to react after the fact. Okay, he's overheating. Get him now. Get it, and I was joking with Jacob Green, former D lineman here in Seattle Seahawk, just an absolute great. He and Dave Elmendorf, my partner, they talked about during their times at camp and in football where water was a punishment. You were weak if you took water. Now all you hear is hydrate. Yeah.
Well, that's where I am. I go outside and play with the dogs every day when the show is done. And those 15 minutes or so make me definitely need my electrolytes and my hydration. So I'm with them. And I wouldn't say I love to run, but there is coming up a half marathon. I've done almost 10 of them in my life. And there's one in December in College Station. So I'm actually wanting to train for that. But heck, if I know when I'm supposed to run right now in this kind of heat without passing out. So
it's not like you could just run in December. You've got to train for it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I do.
hopefully you can find a whole lot of shade. Maybe that will help a little bit. Even the shade doesn't help.
So you bring up Mike Elko, an 11-0 start in his second year. He's rewarded, in a spot in the college football playoff. He's rewarded with a contract extension, but also, hey, coach, your two coordinators are going to go find other jobs. So how have you seen that adjustment start to play out where it's still the same head coach, but different voices on either side of the ball?
Yeah, now the good thing is Holman Wiggins on the offensive side had the wide receivers, so that's not new for them. The other thing that I think is really important, Amy, is Marcel Reed at quarterback does not have to learn a new language and new terminology. I think that's very important. Now, Holman's not going to do the same things that Colin Klein did, but there's going to be a lot of similarities there from what they have run in the past. I think that is important. As you know, that's sometimes a reason why a quarterback will struggle is because they are starting from day one with the rest of the offense. Here, Marcel gets to pick up where he left off as the leader of this offense, as the leader of this team, and he's got respect on both sides of the ball, that's for sure. And wonderful for Colin Klein to go back home. And he said, look, if I ever get a chance to come back, I would love to. I hope Colin never comes back. I hope he's successful, a quality human being. You know, you've been around him. He's just outstanding, and I wish him the best. And I'm so glad that K-State gave him that opportunity. Luke Hemphill takes over on defense. Now, in fairness, and this is not a shot to he nor to Jay Bateman, Mike will have his hands on that defense. So that's, you know, every head coach has something, whether they're on the offensive side, defensive side. The old safeties coach in Mike Elko will always have his hands on that. So I think it's as, I don't want to say seamless, but it's as seamless I think you could get in that change of coordinators. And that is an important part, I think, in college football. And Mike Elko has said this. He wants his coaches to want to be coordinators, and he wants those coordinators to be head coaches. And sometimes it's not at the program. And now it's up to the head coach to bring in the right people. That has stymied some head coaches in the past. You have to know who's next. And I don't think you take it as a negative. And I think that's one of the many things that impresses me about Mike Elko is he's on top of things like that, not anticipating they're going to go. But, you know, successful teams lose their coach.
Yes. They lose players too, right?
Yes,
they lose players as well with the transfer portal and, of course, the NFL draft.
Correct.
Taking a bunch of the guys along the line. Before we talk about the new O-line, though, for some reason, Marcel Reed really incites a lot of emotion from people, and they tend to be polar opposites. Either people love what he brings to the table and his skill set, and they see the value in a quarterback who's unique like he does, or it's the opposite, where he's not an elite QB. So this year, as you talk about proven leader, unquestioned leader of this team and the offense, and has at least some consistency, even with the changes, what does he need to do to take his game to the next level?
Yeah, I think it's now, and I understood when Mike said it last year that Marcel understands what it means to be the number one quarterback for an SEC team. Remember, he battled Connor Wigman. Connor got hurt. Connor won it as he should have, but then Marcel had to take over. Now, his first game at Florida in Gainesville, Mike told him he was starting before that game. That's not the case now for Marcel. It's completely different circumstance. He understands the preparation of all of it. He understands what that takes. And I thought that was his next step last year. This year, you said consistency. And I think that's going to be next. Those times when he was inconsistent or the offense was inconsistent, you could see him last year say, oh, look, that's all my fault. When they're down 30-3 to South Carolina and they're in the locker room, everybody expected Mike Elko to rant and rave. In that locker room at halftime, it was Marcel Reed and Torian York who talked to the team, not Mike. Now, Mike did have his say, but it wasn't this big thing. That's the leadership to me, where after that game, both of them said, look, we apologize to the 12th man. That first half is unacceptable. Now, when that first half starts happening, that's where Marcel needs to be. That consistency has to be closer to 100%. I know that's not possible, not in the college game, but instead of it being a half, can it be just a drive or maybe two drives and then get back to it? Look, here's what's made Marcel a better quarterback, and not a shot at all at Marcel. And I think one of the reasons why He was never this celebrated quarterback like other quarterbacks in the country. So it's like, oh, where did he come from? And I get that's where the doubt comes from him. But Jimbo took him from Ole Miss. He was going to Ole Miss, and Jimbo got him. When he came on campus with Haynes King, with Connor Wigman, there's Marcel Reed, and he said he's going to be the best out of all of them. Not right now. He will be the best out of all of them. So I saw Jimbo in December when he was working for ACC Network. I said, Jimbo, I've never forgotten that about Marcel Reed, is that he said, look, you could see the talent. More than anything, you could see how he worked. But for me, here's what makes Marcel better. Casey Concepcion. There's no mistake when you have an NFL wide receiver. Can you get him the ball? Right. And there's a play that will always stick out to me. And this is that part of that maturation and learning in the grasp is in Missouri in that game on the road. It really was just a signal between the two of them of what they had seen from the Missouri defense. And at the line of scrimmage, he called the middle screen and KC took it to a touchdown. I think he has that with Mario Craver. I think he has that with Isaiah Horton. I think he has that with Ashton Bethel-Roman. He may not have had that, but reps together, not just on the practice field. What are you doing on the 7-on-7? What are you doing in your own time? When he was a freshman, the D linemen would always get together and they would get some food and they would watch film together, just the D line. Marcel walks by that room and says, hey, can we watch film with you? It wasn't in a mean way, but they said, look, this is for the D line. So Marcel said, you know what? I'm going to do that with the quarterbacks. That's just the little things. Like, how does a guy improve? Sometimes you have to see what they're doing off the field and that relationship. That's what I think makes him special. I really do. Look, the talent is there. Remember, he can't throw the deep ball. Again, you got Mario Craver running under it. You got KC. Yes, he can. You know what I mean? And I think that wide receiver group, and you have to have all SEC talent. You have to have NFL talent at your skill positions. You have to have game breakers. He's a game breaker also, whether it's with the arm or definitely with his legs. I think that's what makes him so dangerous. Can he be consistent now for 13 weeks? That's going to be what's next for Marcel.
They definitely have a new look along the offensive line, which will be important, not just for Marcel, but for the offense. And in the trenches, it's so much about just reps together. Those five guys, or maybe there's a couple that get a bunch of snaps, but they've got to play together to find that rhythm. What have you seen so far in practice that indicates that this newly built O-line is ready to go?
There is one starter coming back, and that's your center in Mark Naboo. But when you look at that line, it has SEC experience because Tyree Adams comes from LSU, and he's at left tackle. He's replacing a great one and a consistent one in Trey Zune. And on the right side is Wilkin Formby from Alabama. They've been through SEC. They faced SEC defensive linemen. Cohen Eccles, I think, has a shot. It's either going to be he or Trovon Ball from South Carolina. So an LSU guard, a South Carolina guard as well. And I think at the left guard, it might be Blake Ivy, who will be in his third year in this program and learn from the Chase Basantises of the world about how to be a guard. I think that's one step to being important, having that SEC experience and what it's like so you're not overwhelmed. But to your point, I think any offensive line takes some time. How quickly does it gel? I think it also helps that it's a deep tight end room. Now, I have asked offensive linemen if tight ends are a sixth offensive lineman. The offensive linemen, the tight ends say, yes, we are. The offensive linemen said, no, they're not, because they don't have to do everything that we do. They just have to block everywhere.
You can pick and choose when you block.
They ain't blocking when they're going to be catching the ball, right? But they are a sixth offensive lineman, and there's experience there as well at tight end, and I think that helps. I think another part of the success for A&M was the wide receivers, and obviously the running backs. The wide receivers weren't afraid to block. And as great as KC Concepcion was, he was a blocker. So, Amy, I'll tell you what they covet on this team is what Mike calls the men of the 10. You know who took the ball into the end zone. What are the other 10 doing? Did you make that play? So in that part of film, he's pointing out not the ball carrier. We can all see that. Who in that men of the 10? And then that became the coveted T-shirt that you got. I love that type of togetherness. Like they're fighting, and now it's like, I made that block. I did that. And when your superstars are doing it, isn't that even more like you can do that? Like Casey's an elite route runner, but he also did that. And I'm excited because Mario Craver saw that for a year. Terry Bussey saw that for that year and understands what did it take for him to get to Cleveland? Doing all of this. So if I want to do that, let me do the same things. And I think that will be part of the legacy for the Casey Concepcions, for the Torian Yorks, the Trey Zunes, the Will Lees, at cornerback. That's going to be their legacy of here's how we got to 11-2. Now you guys take us the rest of the way because there's still some unfinished business.
So I married into a family that's split. Now, I would say there are more family members who are Longhorns, including my husband, but there are a few Aggies. And so I get it from both sides. And the games watching with them, hysterical. I feel like I landed right in the middle of some type of a plot, like a movie plot. Anyway, it really is a battle. And obviously anybody who lives in Alabama or understands Ohio State, Michigan, any of those long-standing established rivalries, goodness, you know that it runs deep. The Aggies have not beaten the Longhorns in football since 2010. How do they get over that hump, Andrew?
They need to be more physical. I thought they got out physicaled in the last two games, and they weren't great in the first half, but that game was close, and it came down to the final 30 minutes, and Texas was more physical. I thought Miami was more physical in the playoff game. And that's what makes that rivalry of all rivalries, right? It's the time of the year that it happens as well, where everything gets magnified. Now, the Aggies had done so much that they were still in the college football playoff. And as Aggies will remind Longhorns, Texas was on the outside looking in last year. But you know what it's like? Like they all circle Mike Elko's first year. He not only has Notre Dame as the first game, but all he's asked in the offseason was, tell me about Texas. He goes, we've got 10 games to go until then. How much it means, right? That's how much it means. I truly don't believe this. If you went 1-11 and the only team you beat was Texas, there's not an Aggie who would be happy. Not at all. Like it would take a little bit of the bitterness away, but that's an awful season. You know what I mean? But it does mean more. And it has meant more in this state. It meant more because it went away. It meant more because the Aggies, I need to say this, they made the right move going to the SEC. And 13 years later, here comes Texas and Oklahoma. Understanding in this world, it changed in 2012. And everything that was revolving and not getting into history, they were all going to the Pac-12 and then realized, no, we need to look east, right, for Texas A&M. And because the SEC's success, that helped A&M. It helped A&M's entire athletic department grow. Now, because of that absence, the other sports were playing, the absence of football. And the combination of the rivalry, what it means, usually it was for the Southwest Conference or for the Big 12. It was Thanksgiving. It was a national rivalry as well. For it to be missing and come back made that night at Kyle even more special on a season where it was electric there. And you finally felt that when we went back to Austin last year. There was so much on the line for that one. And yeah, that's why I say it's unfinished. Like that first year, they win 8 games, but they did not play well in November. It cost them a chance to go to the SEC championship in Atlanta. Same thing. They don't go to Atlanta. They're knocking on the door. And you can argue about, is it better to go to the championship or not? I think it's important for A&M because they've never been there. And I think that would be an important milestone. And again, this is what we play for. But they did get to the playoff. To me, like last year's mantra was finish, and they were better in November, but it's still unfinished. And that's why I feel is that the chip on the shoulder of the guys coming back going, we left at least 90 minutes on that field. How do we play even better for 90 minutes? And I get it. Miami had it's a great team. It hurt on December 20th, but you're watching going, that's a pretty good team. But if you beat Texas, you're in the SEC championship and you're not a 7 seed.
Right.
The difference in that loss was playing James Madison or Miami. Those are the little details. So is that an extra rep in the weight room? Is it going to stay a little later? Do it. I call it the work in the dark, Amy. What's the work that you're going to do in the dark? What's the difference between you being a second teamer or now you're with the ones? It's that work that you do and competing every single day. To me, good season last year. unfinished. And let's see what they do this year. And it's going to be difficult for every SEC school. It's now 9 games in conference.
Right. So different. As it continues to grow and expand, they've got to be able to accommodate all the different rivalries and matchups and TV contracts and everything else. So, Andrew, my one experience going to a Texas A&M game at Kyle Field actually happened 20 years ago, but it was back when Bob Stoops was the coach of Oklahoma, and they were one of the top teams in the country, and they played at Kyle Field. So I was there covering it for my local radio station in Oklahoma, and I will never forget the experience. The stands look like they're swaying with the 12th man. And so I was down. I was actually watching from a short bleacher in the end zone. So different setup now, but I was down there kind of field level, and I'll never forget how incredible the atmosphere. I'm determined to get back there this year. But for people who've not been, what is it like to be there for a home game and to call a home game for the Fightin' Aggies?
Yeah, my first game in the booth when they ran out, and it sways, and that's when you're thankful that this is an engineering school. So, but my partner Dave Elmendorf, who's done it, this will be his 35th year, looked at me, goes, "Can you feel it swaying?" And that's chill inducing. And whether it's a Saturday night, it can be whatever. I think it's a bucket list stadium. It's not the only one. I am not one of those people. I'm really not. But if you are a college football fan, I truly believe you need to experience that. I remember our second game, my first year here, our second game was we were hosting Clemson and meeting Clemson fans. And then we went there the next year. Love that place, by the way. I think that's another one. But it was the respect between both fan bases, because you go to Clemson and they're also very welcoming to visiting fans, especially when you buy in and you want to take in the experience. But you're seeing tailgating for miles because it's different at Clemson, and it's all over. And the tailgating around Kyle Field, and you're welcome, even if you are visit, welcome, come over. We've got stuff for you. I think it's one of those. I really do, and I think a Saturday night at Kyle Field is really, really special. From Amy, when you think about it, it's a student section that has 38,000 students in it. That's larger than some stadiums, and they're there, and they're standing, and they're into it. This isn't, you don't have to tell Aggies and the 12th man it's third down. They know there's a different buzz there. But Amy, doesn't that come from having the Wrecking Crew, in the history? Like the echoes of that should always be a part of it. But look, I got to do a game in another bucket list place last year, Notre Dame. I spent the whole day on campus. Like I'm walking around and I'm seeing Touchdown Jesus, and I'm at the grotto, and I'm like, I can see how a kid comes here to play. It was wonderful, and they were great. And to go to LSU on a Saturday night is special. I hate it because it's eerie, right? But you know why else you hate it is because they're sending 29 players to the NFL. It's the team on the field is also really good. But Bryant Denny taking on Alabama, like those are special. Florida's loud, right? Georgia, great place, even though we've only been there once. South Carolina at night is different, like the SEC. But I also know that Penn State's another great place. Talking to the Auburn guys in a whiteout, and growing up in Pennsylvania, you were a Penn State fan, and being there, in Happy Valley, like you say, Michigan, Ohio State, those rivalry games, I'm leaving some out. Kyle Field belongs in that. I just think it's an outstanding experience for 60 minutes of football. I don't think you have to rely. You add the electronics and you add some of the lights, but it's not what drives you. I think there's a lot of the attention to what's on the field. There's a lot of attention, to it's not just, how we're getting into the entertainment part. Entertainment's, it's important, but what's happening between those yard lines and just that experience of, I always joke, it's 100,000 of your closest friends coming together. And yeah, when it sways, it's something special for sure.
Absolutely. So I cannot wait to get back there again this season. But you're right. If the product on the field is not good, not compelling, not successful, then the buzz only goes so far and the experience is very different. I don't want to keep you for too much longer. However, I want to say congratulations to you for winning the NMSA Sportscaster of the Year. You got presented by Sean McDonough. Saw the photos. You clean up nice there, Andrew. So congratulations. But really, though, what was that whole experience like for you as someone who's been in the business for such a long time to be recognized? I know it's humbling, but how awesome.
It's the honor. Amy, you'll know when I say this. It's an honor now to be included with those names who have won in Texas before. My joke is I'm just borrowing it from Brad Sham and Eric Nadel. That's all I'm doing. You know what I mean? Brad wasn't happy with me when I said that because he just won't. Look, he's got his own booth, you know, in Arlington. No, that was the honor. It's a competitive state. There's a lot of great broadcasters here. I had been part of it the year before. I had been nominated. Winning's way better.
It is an honor to be nominated, but winning is way better.
But it was because when we changed the booth, so Sean's over, he would be when he came in to do the Miami game, and you see him throughout the season and catching up, but I really don't know Sean. But we talked just before that Miami game, and he said something at the end of the phone call that really I really appreciated. And I didn't see him until the ceremony in Greensboro, and it gave me an opportunity to thank him for the very kind words. And you know, look, I have so much respect for him because look, he's an absolute giant. And I looked at that like Dave Gorin's going to hate me. Like, what took you so long to honor Sean, you know, going in that Hall of Fame? And he's just outstanding. And the reason why I say that, Amy, is I know a couple of cameramen on the crew, and there's a couple audio guys who have worked, but 2 have been on his crews. They've now moved to Monday Night Football and said he was outstanding. And you know, in our business, there's some egos in our business. I don't think Sean has one. And he knew everybody's name, and he would, even in the off season, knowing the families. That resonates with me because that's how it should be. Because I don't know how we can have an ego. Babe Ruth was traded. You think Monaco's staying? You know what I mean?
No one's irreplaceable, right? No one's irreplaceable.
But I wanted to go out because, you know, you're honored. That Sportscaster of the Year, you get nominated by your peers. And that says an awful lot to me. And it is. I'm honored to be included. And I hope that there's a young broadcaster who looks at that and goes, man, if Andrew can win it, I got a shot. So we'll go with that. No, but just to be on that list is really overwhelming. And you know this, when they reach out, the people who reach out, sometimes that means even more. But it was also nice to catch up with some friends from around the country that I don't get to see all the time and do that. So it was really a couple of great nights there in Greensboro, and I am thankful and appreciative of the honor.
Oh, well, and now the work begins again, Andrew. Practices outside and getting ready for kickoff at another season. But it's so good to connect with you. I know you have a lot going on right now. Congratulations on the honor. I would agree with you. Nomination is fun, but winning is way better. And I will see you this year. I'll come by and visit your booth, but also
please do.
I will be able to connect in person. It's been a lot of years, but it's fun at least to be able to see your face while I talk to you.
And good luck with this. I love this show. I love this. And you know, I have nothing but respect and love for you as well. I look forward to seeing you really, really soon.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to talk to you. Yeah. Good stuff. And yes, congratulations to him. The NMSA is a very well-respected broadcast organization, sports media organization. And so for him to be nominated and to win, courtesy of his peers in the very large state of Texas, is an honor. And then he mentions Brad Sham, who is the longtime voice of the Dallas Cowboys, and Eric Nadel, who is the longtime voice of the Texas Rangers. Those two guys, they're iconic. So yeah, to be included in that company and to win is pretty amazing. Really fun conversation. Gets me all jazzed up, not just for college football, but football season, which, as you know, is mere weeks away from games that count. We're not that far away from week 0 in college football. They kick off a week before the NFL, actually a week and a half before the NFL. So good to have him. We'll get back to some of what's happening in the NFL, like the Seahawks adding not 1, but 2 quality defenders to a defense that very well could have been the MVP of their Super Bowl win just a few months ago. It's All In with Amy Lawrence here on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
In Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
All jazzed up after my conversation with Andrew Monaco, and really first time I've seen his face other than saying a still photo on Twix or something along those lines, but to see him and talk to him, it's been years. I love the fact that he has not only been honored for his great work, but that he brings such energy and enthusiasm, and that's why it's so much fun to have him here. But yes, thinking about the football season and how close we are to games that matter and to these college football programs starting to build their resumes. Now, I will tell you up front, I'm very open about this. I prefer pro sports because of this reason. You are what your record says that you are. There are no committees. There are no human beings or polls determining where you belong or if you belong in a college football playoff. And I know that they continue to tweak the system. But to me, in the NFL, because we're talking football here, you are what your record says you are. No one can tweak it. No one can add to your resume. Close doesn't count, that type of thing. You're not beholden on a committee that's sequestered for a week determining whether or not you qualify or you're good enough for the postseason. So I do prefer a system where it's all about the wins and losses, and there should never be ties in professional sports. So I won't even acknowledge those. In college football, in college basketball, we still have these committees that determine who fits into the bracket and where. And so I don't love that, but I do think that there's such a great sense of urgency with college football, even before you see the first types of playoff rankings that the committee will release to give you a taste of what they're looking at and where teams might be slotted in. I know there's a lot of drama, and it always creates conversation and debate over who should be in and who should be out. to me, that's tough. But college football continues to talk about expanding that playoff because why? Well, they know that more teams equals more games, equals more national TV appearances, equals more revenue. And so I sometimes wrestle and battle with how the major power commissioners, power four commissioners now handle their sport, where it's much more of a money grab. So that bothers me sometimes with college football, where your resume can be interpreted different ways by different committee members. I hope they do have the balance on their committee, but it doesn't take away from the pomp and circumstance that is college football. And it doesn't take away from the energy and the joy and the excitement, the passion that really is like a river that runs through college football, especially with some of these big rivalries that we've talked about. But I'm still getting acclimated, not so much to Texas weather, but to the rivalry between Texas and Texas A&M. I had a healthy dose of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I certainly know all about Ohio State and Michigan, because my mom's whole side of the family is from Northeast Ohio. I got you when it comes to some of the rivalries, like in Alabama that divides the state, and some of those in the Southeast as well. But really neat to be part of what is a tradition in Texas football that they've reinstituted and reestablished when it comes to the Longhorns and the Aggies. And goodness, do I hear the trash talk in my own family. That's something that still amuses me. People have asked me, have you become a Texas fan now, or are you rooting for the Cowboys, for heaven's sakes? Nope. They've got their own fan bases. I'm too old to start jumping on bandwagons and having new rooting interests, if you will. That's not me. But what I do love is wherever I live, and I've lived in a lot of different places, when the local teams do well, it brings in more revenue, and it brings some joy to the community. So I always applaud the local teams when they do well. And to be more immersed in Texas and Texas A&M now is kind of interesting through the lens of being a family member. So yes, I am personally invested in how that goes. All right, we'll take our quick break here at the top of the hour. My thanks to Waco Surf, which is another college town, Baylor University, but also the home of Rogue Media Network. And in Waco, there's this incredible destination for people who need some water and need to get a break and some relief from the heat. So you can go, you can stay, you can play. Labor Day weekend is coming up, and I appreciate Waco Surf and their partnership for us here at Rogue Media Network. Yes, the Seahawks defense is an example of the rich getting richer. Also, I am completely befuddled, but also cynical and skeptical of the ruling from the NBA that came down in this Clippers situation. Boy, it's one of those facepalm moments. Now, see, in the radio, I used to have to do like a real quality facepalm, and I mean one with some force, something like that, because then you could hear it over the microphone. Now I actually don't have to hit myself real hard because you can get it. Facepalm emoji. 1 hour down on this Thursday. Glad to have you with us here on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Glad to have you with us on this Thursday. I really am excited. I can feel the blood start to percolate a little bit. That sounds weird. That sounds like coffee. Never mind. Let's there goes the perfect show. Survey says, we're going to try a different mixed metaphor. I can feel, but see, my blood's not boiling. That feels more like angry. I can feel my enthusiasm percolating. There we go. Didn't have to go all bloody on you. I can feel my energy get a big boost whenever we talk about football in the upcoming season. And actually it's funny, I'll text my husband every now and then during a commercial break. And I texted him to say, I think I'll share that conversation with some of our Aggie loving family members so that they can be excited too, because Andrew is great. And of course, they all recognize his voice. So as we pivot now into the second hour and into the NFL, interesting situation unfolding with the defending Super Bowl champions who don't have a ton of transition on their roster. So they have a lot of the same starters this season that, are from last year's team that surprised many football fans. I would say the majority of football fans, seeing not just the Seahawks win the Super Bowl in Mike McDonald's second year, but honestly, the matchup in the Super Bowl was a surprise. The Seahawks and the Patriots. And I still say that there's so much about this upcoming season, especially in the AFC, that we just do not know and is wide open. And that's the beauty of the NFL season, is that it's ever changing, ever morphing like an amoeba. I always use my example from 8th grade science class. None of these teams start a season ready to win a championship, not even the Seahawks. And I think they're a great example, even as I've been able to watch some of the Hard Knocks clips and how Mike McDonald is getting his team ready to now try to make sure that they don't lose the throne, so to speak, or they're not knocked off the throne. And that means you constantly have to look for ways to get better. And one way that they're doing it is looking for an edge when it comes to either securing their depth or adding guys who are veterans, who can come in and right away can make a difference as long as they're healthy, okay? Or as long as they're available, which those are two questions that must be asked about their two latest additions. One that's official, one that is reported and likely to be official before long. So here's what's happening with their defense. Trayvon Diggs, who you may remember is a guy that was drafted by the Cowboys, brother of Stephon Diggs. But Trayvon Diggs made such a massive splash when he first started his career in the Dallas Cowboys secondary. He was a cornerback that made the Pro Bowl multiple times. And he was part of, I say, going back several years where they still had Micah Parsons. They had some other dudes like a DeMarcus Lawrence, Dante Fowler. That defense had some teeth there for like a year and a half. Okay, 2 years maybe. But a lot of those pieces have now moved elsewhere. Parsons was traded. Diggs, he fell out of favor with the Cowboys for a couple of reasons. One, because it wasn't so much the injuries, though he did have some very nagging knee injuries, the ACL tear that kept him out for more than a season, concussion symptoms and concussion protocol as well. But because he made the choice to rehab some of these injuries away from the Dallas Cowboys facilities. For those of you who are NBA fans, you may remember this is really what ended the relationship between Kawhi Leonard and the San Antonio Spurs going back a few years now, where they were suspicious and he was upset that they were suspicious, and he felt like they didn't trust him and they didn't have his best interest at heart when he chose to rehab from some serious injuries away from the team. So instead of being with his franchise and with his teammates and working with their training staff and their doctors and their therapists so that they could monitor what was going on with his injury and also his recovery, he chose to, I mean, he wasn't even in the same state. If I remember, he was in New York at the time. And the Spurs relationship with Kawhi really devolved at that point until finally they traded him away to Toronto. Well, in the case of Trayvon Diggs, something similar, where the Cowboys weren't thrilled that he chose to be in another state, South Carolina, to rehab some of these injuries in, 23, 24. And so they actually took advantage of some clauses in his contract to reduce the amount of money that he made because he was away from the team. Even in the offseason, when they would do their voluntary OTAs or the mandatory OTAs, Trayvon chose often to be on his own, working with his own therapist and doing his own rehab away from the team. And so because it was a clause in his contract, the Cowboys, they took advantage of it and they saved some money on him, so to speak. And that relationship really devolved. Okay. So he was just a great revelation as a second round pick going back to the COVID year 2020. He was a first team All-Pro, and he was just a tremendous part of that defense. He had a Cowboys record for a number of interceptions in a season, Pro Bowl again in 21, 22. And so when the injuries caught up with him, the Cowboys decided, okay, they don't love how this is going anyway. And plus these injuries have kept him off the field. So we're not getting our money's worth. And so they decided that they would go a separate way. Well, the Seahawks have a couple of players on their roster. I mentioned both Lawrence as well as Fowler. Those guys are now with the Seahawks. And so there's a familiarity there. So as Trayvon Diggs thankfully feels healthy, and he's talked about how this offseason is really the first time in a long time where he's not rehabbing, but instead he's able to train in the offseason. And he had some other teams that were interested in him, but instead he decided that he would go to the Seahawks, not only because they've got some guys that are already on that roster that he's comfortable with and he knows from his time with the Cowboys, but also who doesn't want to join a Super Bowl winning defense? And so they're excited. The Seahawks are excited to bring him on board because A, he's healthy, because they've also got some question marks in their secondary, and it offers him a chance for a fresh start. And so I'm glad for him. I do think that a lot of times, and this is just human nature, we feel energized and rejuvenated by an opportunity to start fresh somewhere else. Now, it doesn't mean it won't be a challenge. He's still got to stay healthy, but the fact that he knows a couple of the guys on the roster already, they can vouch for him. They can let the rest of the Seahawks roster know that he's all right and that they believe in him and they think he'll be a good addition. So that's one piece. His challenge is staying healthy and also finding that playing time, finding his niche, finding his groove with the secondary that includes now the highest paid cornerback in NFL history in Witherspoon. So there's a lot, I think, about the Seahawks defense that can make you feel comfortable just because they are the defending champions. There's a swag that comes with that. As I mentioned, they now have Devon Witherspoon, who's the highest paid at his position, at least for now. It may not last very long, but that's where he is. And if you didn't see the video, the Seahawks released this video. Is pretty sweet when he walked into the locker room after Spoon signed this new deal. It was pretty cool to see how the other guys were celebrating him and just the excitement for him that he got paid and that he's validated by this new contract. And that, of course, the business now is in the rearview mirror. So I did love that video. Just kind of reminds you that if you've got guys who so corporate synergy or just the chemistry that can be so elusive in an NFL locker room with so many guys. It just reminds you that when you truly have a team that's committed to winning, but also is on board, is accountable, and cares about the guy on the left and the guy on the right, you really do take major steps forward to being a winner. And the Seahawks right now are the gold standard, because they're the Super Bowl champions. And yet they're not as concerned about, well, they can be happy for someone else. Okay. So they're not jealous. Hey, that's my money. I should have that money. What about me? I deserve a raise. They can be happy for their guys, their teammates, when they do get paid, when they do get acknowledged and validated with a new contract. So I love that. I love the excitement for Spoon. Anyway, Trayvon Diggs is listed behind him on the depth chart. And so he may have to earn the playing time, or there may have to be some schemes and some sets where he has an opportunity out there as another DB. But could they see what he brings to the table? Can he get up to speed quickly? Can they see what he brings to the table? And can they then design some sets and design some wrinkles, add some various different options to a particular defensive set where they feel like his skills can be a huge asset to them? So I love this idea for both Trayvon Diggs, who of course is looking for a fresh start and a reset, and dang, I want to be able to stay healthy and get back to what I did in my rookie year and, second and third years, but also for the Seahawks and for that defense, and wanting to feel like they have not stayed in place, but they've taken a step forward and they've added some pieces that maybe could make them even better than they were a year ago if everything comes together. So the second part of this, in addition, to Trayvon Diggs, actually, you know what? I forgot about this, but I'm just realizing producer Zach did remind me. Trayvon was excited and did speak to the media when he was first there as part of the Seahawks practice.
I had a visit with Detroit. I was supposed to see a couple other teams, but I like to hear a lot. Like, this feels like home. I got a lot of familiar faces. Coach Scott, AD. So just being a part of those guys knowing me, knowing where my heart is, knowing how I want to compete. So it felt right.
Okay, my fault. Thank you, Zach, for being Zach on the spot, Johnny on the spot, but also grabbing that audio, because the familiarity is a thing that we've heard a bunch from him. And really, it can make the difference between a guy signing one place or going somewhere else. If it feels like he's got some pre-existing relationships and connections. And I think that's probably it's one thing that we don't realize, or that if you've not been around the NFL, you don't realize how much movement there is and how many relationships. It's not really as large a fraternity as you might think. Yes, the rosters are big, and yes, there's practice players and the travel parties are enormous, but so many of these guys move around during their careers. And gosh, the turnover on one coaching staff over the course of a year or 5 years. I mean, I've got some friends, actually one friend in particular, who is a longtime running backs coach. He was with the Bengals for quite a while, and he actually was out of the NFL for several years. He was working in college, but was kind of desperate to get back in. So he would reach out to his contacts as head coaches would get new gigs, or as coordinators would join coaches. Again, so much about the relationships. When one coach gets a new job, a head coach gets a new job, he very often reaches out to contacts that he knows that he can trust to bring them on board to fill out his staff. And that means, obviously, that those relationships are so critical when it comes to moving up the ladder or moving up the chain, so to speak, And for my friend, he'd been out of it for several years, but it took one guy getting a head coaching job, bringing in a coordinator that he was familiar with. And now my friend has a new job in the NFL again. And it's so much of that. It's the networking. You've got to cultivate the relationships, but it's also about there not being a whole lot of time and patience with new coaching staffs and new hires, which means that you've got to hit the ground running. You've got to be able to show that you're building a foundation and changing culture, and that you're communicating with players, and that you've got everybody on board, and you've got to do it quickly. Because if the owner doesn't feel like there's enough evidence that this hire is working, well, even if there is a pre-existing relationship, sometimes that coach will get the boot. And I think the Patriots, they're not the only example. I mean, I could give you dozens of examples. The Browns have got a resume in this arena. Goodness, the Panthers, the Saints. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have fired coaches after 1 or 2 seasons, and it just sits wrong. How can a team or a coach make an imprint or establish any type of a winning culture when you've got so little time? But most recently, one that comes to mind, and this is because I'm talking about pre-existing relationships, Bob Kraft, he fired a guy who it felt like he was grooming for that position for several years, not only under Bill Belichick, but just feeling like he had contributed so much to the Patriots' success as a player. And so Bob Kraft makes this hire, and he brings in a new guy, and they replace Bill Belichick, and they feel like they've got the right formula. And okay, it might take some time because he's not been a head coach in the past. But the problem is he didn't, Gerard Mayo, even though he had that pre-existing relationship with Bob Kraft, it didn't feel like it was the right thing, or he was making the right decisions. And there was this type of, when you're starting a new job, you're trying to learn the ropes, and there's a learning curve there that they didn't feel like Gerard Mayo had mastered quickly enough, and some mistakes that came back to haunt him. And so after 1 year of this guy that Bob had kind of handpicked and was grooming to be a head coach, and it was his choice, and a lot of people knew it even toward the end of Belichick's tenure, Mayo lasts 1 season and they pivot to Mike Vrabel. Now, to be fair, I think Kraft would have hired Vrabel the year before had he been available. But this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes the pre-existing relationship isn't even enough to keep a coaching hire in place, or to convince an owner not to make changes. So that's why these relationships and this trust is important, because it's tough. There's so little margin for error, and there's so little time. You've got to hit the ground running. It doesn't always happen as easily as it did with Ben Johnson in his first year in Chicago. All right, so there's another piece to this Seahawks offseason with another defender whose name you will likely know. His story is also convoluted. So for Trayvon Diggs, it's about health. For Terrion Arnold, well, it's about when he might be available. And yet the Seahawks are, in fact, the destination. According to all the reports, it's just a matter of time. I've even heard this is part of Hard Knocks, the conversation between John Schneider, the GM there, and Terrion Arnold's agent. So we'll get into that a little bit too. And also in the NBA, before we finish out the show, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but this part of me believes, however naively, that there's integrity in a process when you're doing an investigation, even if it's into one of your own. So I will explain. Glad to have you with us. I see a bunch of your comments, and we'll try to share some of those before this edition of the show is done. All in with Amy Lawrence, and I'm all in with you here on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course, as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool, or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabin, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Following some of your comments on our live stream here on the show, and I like that Joe's reminding us that the Packers, the Pack, had Trayvon Diggs for a bit last year. Joe, thank you for weighing in. And some of you a little bit skeptical of how the relationship might play out there in the Seattle area. But I do think it really matters about leadership. How often teams will bring a guy on board, and this isn't unique to football, but will bring a guy on board and he may have a troubled past, or he may have some legal issues, or maybe there were questions about how hard he played or his motivations or how he got along with teammates. Everything you needed to know, you learned in kindergarten. Just kidding. I guess you can learn it in an NFL locker room. But the thing is, if you've got strong leadership, and this is with the coaches, but not just the coaches, also the captains, if you've got guys who are already established with the team, especially when it's a winner, so the formula is proven, well, then an incoming guy knows he's got to get in line. He's got to get on board and be accountable and be part of what's already happening there because they won without him. So if you want to be part of it, well, you got to get in the groove. You got to be part of what we're doing. We're not going to change. It's a little bit of that herd mentality. We're not going to change for you, the one new guy. You're going to change for us. And if you don't fit here, well, there's the door. If you don't want to line up with what we're doing, guess what? We won without you. And we're not afraid to say like, hey, that's not working out. So strong leadership inside a locker room can very much get a new guy, even if he's got some questionable choices or decisions or some questions about his past. Even that guy can come in line with what they're doing when you've got the leadership at the top, who's an extension of the coaching staff in that locker room and on the field. So I don't worry as much about whatever Trayvon, may have done in Dallas or elsewhere, because if he really wants to win and he wants to resurrect his career and he wants to get another contract that gives him more years in the NFL, well, then I don't want to say it's his last chance, but you only have so many chances, even when you're super talented, after a bunch of injuries and after some questionable choices that made a team decide that you weren't worth it anymore. Well, there's only so many of those opportunities out there. You got to take advantage of the ones that come your way. Otherwise, somebody else is going to take that spot. So I love that we've got football fans who are part of the chat. I know many of you will get to your fantasy football drafts. Not that you worry about defenders in fantasy football, but the defense as a whole, the Seahawks, I would think, are a pretty good bet. So yay, love it that you're participating and that you're part of what we're doing here. Now, getting back to that Seahawks secondary, there's another option that they have at cornerback, but we just don't know when. Okay, so the Seahawks bring in Trayvon Diggs. I'm wondering if Terrion Arnold was going to be available right away, would they also have signed Trayvon? But that is maybe a question that we don't have the answer to right now, just like we don't know exactly how long Arnold will be sidelined. So you don't know this story. First of all, the Seahawks haven't technically signed him yet, but they do still plan to do so. His agent and the general manager, they've had a public phone call that was shared as a part of Hard Knocks. And so they do believe that it's the right spot for him. But the issue is the NFL has got to weigh in because he's got some very serious legal challenges that he is facing, which is why he was cut by the Lions. Okay, so Diggs is available now if he can stay healthy. Arnold may be the long term. But if you aren't familiar with this situation, it's actually kind of scary. And these are all allegations at this point, but there's enough smoke there where the NFL is likely to put him, Terrion Arnold, on the commissioner's exempt list to start the season. Now, this is only it's a holding cell, if you will. Sell maybe strong. It's a spot where he will have to tread water until the NFL decides what to do about his legal case and whether or not he should be suspended. The difference is that commissioner's exempt list, you're paid, whereas with a suspension, it's without pay. But the 8 felony charges in Florida against Terrion Arnold and others are not just going to poof go away. And so while this is still playing out, according to Ian Rappaport and Mike Garafolo, who are part of NFL Network's stable of insiders, they both have indicated that the NFL, once he's on a team, which is likely to be the Seahawks, so maybe it's part of getting their ducks in a row here with the language in the contract. But once he's on a team, he's going to land on the commissioner's exempt list because there's so much uncertainty and because there's an ongoing investigation from the NFL, but also in the actual legal system about his role in what is if you read about it, again, these are allegations, his role in what could have been a kidnapping and a robbery going back to February. So just to kind of the major points of this, Tampa police had already arrested a bunch of guys in this targeted armed robbery in early February, and pretty serious. There were some other men, so they had held these guys kind of hostage. They pistol whipped them. They were pointing guns in their faces, according to police, and they robbed them. But police are now pointing to Terrion Arnold because even though he wasn't on the scene, they say that they have enough evidence that links him and actually fingers him as the ringleader of this whole operation, where he and these other guys lured these 3 men to an apartment and then assaulted them. And he's the one who's accused of, quote, coordinating and directing these other guys. The co-defendants is what they're calling him. And so he did turn himself in, and he spent a night in jail and now faces multiple counts of kidnapping and armed robbery and some pretty hefty potential time in prison if in fact he's convicted. And so at this point, because there's so much uncertainty, because we don't know how the legal process will play out or when there might be some type of a conclusion, that's why the commissioner's exempt list would be critical, which means, of course, he's not available to the Seahawks while he's on that list. And so just some of the other details, which is why the NFL is taking this very seriously. There was this goes back now to, and it looks like retaliation. It goes back to an incident where Arnold and some of his friends had rented an Airbnb in Florida and they were robbed. Okay. So they stayed at this Airbnb kind of on and off and they lost a bunch of personal property. They were robbed. They reported it to the police in early February. And because they had an idea or they had some suspects in mind about who had robbed them, they then turned around and lured these guys that they thought had actually robbed them into this other apartment, and then, like I said, proceeded to allegedly beat them up and hold them hostage and point guns in their faces. And while Arnold wasn't there in that spot where the retaliation allegedly occurred, he's the one who apparently, according to police, was on the phone, was probably a FaceTime or something like that, but was actually part of organizing this whole thing and trying to get back at these guys that they believe robbed him. So yeah, there's some of these guys, the co-defendants in this case, who've already pled guilty, and there's others that are in jail and are being held without bond. And so this is a serious situation. And if he is accused, maybe some of these guys flip on him, or maybe they admit to his role to try to lighten their own sentences. I mean, that happens all the time, right? When you've got attorneys or law enforcement who are trying to pit two people against one another. Whatever the case is, it's serious enough with the NFL, these felony charges and accusations, that Arnold may have orchestrated this retaliation, that they're not going to allow him to play until they really figure out how they want to handle it. Now, he obviously has not done a whole lot of commenting. He wants to focus on football. The Lions cut him, though, and he would be the Seahawks, I don't want to say problem, but it would be a problem for the Seahawks if they choose to bring him on board and put him on the commissioner's exempt list. If they choose to have him as a member of their roster, he would be around the team. He couldn't play in games, right? But he would be around the team and he'd be a member of their locker room. The way that it works is that he's allowed in the team's facility and he can attend meetings. He just can't practice. He can't play in games. So he would be a part of their team, almost like he's on the PUP list, physically unable to perform, but he can be part of the mental process and the learning process of getting to know the Seahawks and their defense, and could contribute, right? As a veteran guy who's played at a highest level, he could certainly be part of preparing and game days. Well, not game days, game weeks, I should say. And also the scout and, hey, I know this guy and this is how I used to defend him, that kind of thing. But he would not be able to practice or play. So if the Seahawks are willing to take that on, well, then he becomes their challenge and their issue. He could add to what they can do in their secondary, certainly, because of his history and because of his experience in the NFL. He comes out of Alabama. He was a first-round pick, late first-round pick, but a first-round pick just a couple years ago. But for them to stick with him, they would have to see that there would be an end, potentially a resolving of this situation, because you're not going to keep him on the commissioner's exempt list and your roster indefinitely. So that's interesting with the Seahawks. But as I say, even if you're a Super Bowl champion, that doesn't carry over into the next season. And let's not forget, the NFC West is one of the toughest divisions of football. So they can't afford to stand pat and hang out where they are and just, hey, teams are going to come on the field here at the 12th man and they're going to bow and scrape because we're Super Bowl champions. Nah, they're going to come at you with even more force and you're going to have the bullseye on your back because you are the champions and everybody is coming for you. And so I appreciate that Mike McDonald is and the front office, John Schneider, longtime GM there in Seattle. They're trying to come up with some more depth and add pieces and know that as difficult as it was last year, of course, they were able to surprise some people. Well, they're not going to take anybody by surprise this season. They're not going to catch anyone off guard, and they're going to get everybody's best effort. So every team that comes in and takes on the Super Bowl champions, even if it's a crappy season for them, well, they're going to get the best effort of their opponents because of that reason, because it's a gauge. It's a measuring stick. It can be a huge lift for an opponent to knock off the Super Bowl champions and feel like, all right, either we're building something here. Oh, okay. We can hang with the champions, which gives us some great hope. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into putting together a champion, but you know that after that championship, no one ever takes you for granted or takes a matchup against you lightly. All right, we're pivoting not to talk about the NBA champions, though I did see this post on X from the Knicks. I think it was a certain number of days since the end of the NBA Finals. Just a reminder, the New York Knicks are your defending NBA champions. And boy, have we seen a lot of changes in just their Atlantic division in the NBA. But that's not where I'm going next. Nah, we're going LA because maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe it's me being naive, but I'm kind of blown away at this conclusion of the NBA investigation into the Clippers. Love your comments. We'd love to touch base with you and connect with you on social media. So I do a lot of conversating. That's not a word, is it? It's like one of those words like strategery that I kind of made up. I love to connect with people. That's the safe word. And I do reply to people and sometimes we'll share comments as well in my own social media. So be good to connect with you, whether it's on Twix at A-Law Radio, some of you are even suggesting guests that I should have on the show, whether it's on our Facebook page or whether you are much cooler and just, I'm teasing, but my younger niece, Lauren, TikTok is really the one that she looks at. And I think she's pretty cool. You can search on your favorite social media for All In with Amy Lawrence. And that's how you can find us on your favorite podcast platform as well. If maybe one day or every day you prefer to listen on the go, well, it's available on Amazon and Google and Spotify, which is my podcast platform that I prefer. Also on Amazon, Spotify, Google, Apple. I'm not an Apple girl. I don't have Apple products. So Apple's not the first one I think of, but I know that's where a lot of you get your podcasts. So we're glad to connect with you, however and wherever it happens to be. We are already heading up toward the top of the hour. Wowzers, these shows go fast. My thanks to Waco Surf. I just really appreciate the fact that we've got corporate partners behind Rogue Media Network and that they're willing to be part of what we're doing here, even in its inception. So thank you to Waco Surf. It's all in. They're all in. It's all in. I'm all in with some water. Anything to do with some relief from the heat here on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to CentralTexasCattleBaronsBall.org.
Enjoy a Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
They say, I'm big on the they today, they say that time flies when you are having fun. And while I do agree that that's the case, it always seems like time drags when you're engaged in some type of activity or a job that you don't enjoy. I think there's also this element to the fact that these shows feel so quick to me. Not only am I still a little uncomfortable trying to figure out the flow and this camera staring at me all the time and my daily routine. So that's still all new to me. This challenge is new to me. We're building it from the ground up. So there's a lot invested, which means, yeah, it's nonstop and trying to feel like we are working toward football season and wanting to be in a good space to begin football season. But also there's this piece that continually dawns on me like, man, I used to do double. And actually, when I do Sirius XM shows on Mad Dog Sports Radio, very often I'm doing 4 hours, not always, but sometimes 4 hours. When I do shows on Sirius XM NFL Radio, they're 2 hours and they've got a co-host. So this actually feels a little more like the shows I would do on NFL. But yeah, Mad Dog, those 4 hours, they now start to feel a little bit longer. Goodness. For 13 years, almost 13 years, I did 4-hour radio shows like nothing. And honestly, would always run out of time before I would run out of topics. That was maybe a tribute to how much I love to talk and my creativity. So these shows do feel pretty quick, but I'm also very grateful for having a daily time slot where you all know you can find me and you can find the show at a consistent time every weekday, or you can be sure and you can count on it being available on your favorite podcast platform after the fact. So pivoting a little bit to the NBA, and I will readily admit I did this on yesterday's show, that I used to be the eternal optimist when I was younger. That's not really me anymore. Life has a way of reminding you that it can be really challenging. And the older you get and the more kind of tough circumstances or situations you go through and you battle, maybe you lose people or it doesn't seem like life is always fair or makes sense. I think that has tarnished some of my optimism. And maybe that was just about where I was in my life as a youth. However, I would never call myself a realist because I still have this hope that comes a lot from my faith, but also just my personality. I try to stay hopeful because if I'm not hopeful, it's hard for me to get out of bed. So to have hope and something to look forward to and something on the horizon that I can really invest in, that's also where I get this kind of optimism. So I'm the type of person that wants to see the positive and wants to see the glass half full. I don't want to be cynical. I don't want to be skeptical, though, gosh, these days it's kind of hard not to be. But I will say that when it comes to believing that sports aren't rigged or that people have integrity or that an investigation is going to be handled with honesty and with what's the word? Transparency is what I'm thinking of. Authenticity, honesty, transparency. I like to believe that other people and organizations will do that because that's what I would do. But I should know by now that that's a naive approach. And I sometimes do tend toward the naive because I want to believe the best in people. I'm sure, I have no doubt. I think even just some of the initial rumblings about this have been very skeptical. This conclusion, if you will, to the NBA investigation into the Clippers. Now, we had talked about this a little bit on the show, and I know I'd done a bunch on some of my radio shows as well, because this has been a big story, in large part because it involves an NBA superstar in Kawhi Leonard. But here is the bottom line. I won't bury the lead. After an investigation that lasted, the better part of a year, and the investigation was initially launched because of Pablo Torre and his podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out. We've talked about him here, even in the first couple of weeks of All In. Well, the questions were really becoming louder and louder. When is the NBA going to issue some type of a ruling about the Clippers and whether or not they deliberately circumvented the salary cap by essentially laundering money through companies? Steve Ballmer would invest in those companies so not necessarily his personal checking account, which I'm sure is exorbitant, but he would use some of his companies to then funnel money to these other companies, partners of the Clippers, who would, on the DL, turn around and sign an endorsement deal with Kawhi Leonard, where there was never really any endorsing, but there was definitely money going to Kawhi Leonard. And the allegations, what the NBA was investigating is essentially that Steve Ballmer was using shell companies that he owned to invest in other corporate partners for the express purpose of them using that money to boost Kawhi Leonard's checkbook or pocketbook, his bank account, so that Steve Ballmer was just sending the money. He was paying Kawhi Leonard extra, but he was sending the money. It was being doctored and laundered through a couple of different companies before it would get to Kawhi. But ultimately, it was just a way of paying him more than the NBA salary cap would allow. So here's what the NBA has indicated. There's no evidence. There's no evidence showing that Clippers owner Steve Ballmer funneled money through various corporate partners who were also doing above board work that they were getting paid for on the Clippers' new arena, their Jumbotron, that kind of stuff. But they don't have any evidence that Steve Ballmer also funneled money through these companies that would then pay Kawhi Leonard more than what he was allowed under the salary cap. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the NBA itself hasn't yet come out and made its statement or delivered its ruling publicly, but there are multiple people now, and the latest story I'm reading comes from ESPN.com, multiple sources indicating to the reporters that are on this story that the NBA is not planning on punishing the owner of the Clippers, Steve Ballmer. Here's the part where it gets kind of sticky, though. The NBA is the owners. So the NBA Board of Governors is made up of the owners. Adam Silver, while he does have some disciplinary powers and CEO responsibilities, he works for the owners, right? So he's the head of their company, but it's the owners ultimately that make the decisions. He just carries out their wishes and their plans. So essentially, the NBA league office is investigating one of their bosses. And while we know that in the past, Adam Silver certainly has been able to take disciplinary action. There are suspensions, or even in the case of the Clippers pre-Steve Ballmer, they ousted the last owner because of some racist comments that were caught on tape in the privacy of his own home. And that's really where Adam Silver introduced himself to the rest of the corporate world and the sports business world, is with the passionate kind of statement, press conference that he did, in which he, kind of announced that the previous Clippers owner didn't deserve to be an owner anymore. But he couldn't have done that by himself. The rest of the owners had to vote to force the previous Clippers owner out. So here is Steve Ballmer, who's being investigated by the NBA And he's the NBA. Like, he is part of the NBA. So it's like I said, it's kind of sticky and a little bit icky at times. So now, according to these reports and these ESPN reporters, the NBA is trying to figure out whether there were a violation of team rules, not necessarily by Steve Ballmer, but by the Clippers introducing Kawhi Leonard to some of these other corporate sponsors. Yeah, it gets kind of convoluted. So now they're trying to determine, they're saying it's not Steve Ballmer's money, and they found no evidence that Steve Ballmer personally funneled money and laundered money so that he could pay Kawhi Leonard extra. Now they're trying to figure out whether or not the Clippers they were negligent, essentially, didn't pay enough attention to what money was flowing where, so that inadvertently Kawhi Leonard was paid extra and they had no idea, and it was happening right under their noses. So that to me, that requires the suspension of common sense, and really requires me to kind of just be ignorant of how business works, and I can't do that. I just can't do that. So now they're still looking at the fact that the salary cap may have been circumvented, but now, oh well, it wasn't Steve Ballmer, it was these other companies, and they kind of took matters into their own hands. And did Clippers employees have something to do with it? Were they just negligent in monitoring where the money was going and how? Are you kidding? So this investigation now, to me, kind of feels a bit like a sham. And if there's no evidence that the money came directly from Steve Ballmer, I guess that would mean he did his job well, or his accountants, his business partners, his financial advisors did their job well, if there's no paper trail. And I understand that you can't necessarily drop the hammer on a team if you don't have the hard evidence and it's all circumstantial, but it does bother me that they would somehow put this on employees under Steve Ballmer, or that this would be more about not monitoring where the money is going, as if Steve Ballmer's oblivious. Are you kidding? He's involved in every aspect of the Los Angeles Clippers. He is a very attentive and engaged owner. We've seen that from the beginning. So again, while the NBA has not yet issued its own statement, these are the reports that are starting to come out now about this investigation, that they aren't going to finger Steve Ballmer for this. Instead, they're looking at whether or not the Clippers organization, they're trying to determine whether or not they didn't supervise their employees and weren't monitoring what was happening with some of their corporate partners. Please. Make me stick a fork in my eye. That's ridiculous. Of course, Steve Ballmer knew if it happened. And it does seem like through some of the investigating, I'll give Pablo Torre credit again, that these companies did endorse Kawhi Leonard, but he didn't do anything for the endorsements. It was really just a matter of money flowing to him through another corporate sponsor. The question is, where did that money come from? And that's what the NBA is supposed to be investigating. I told you before, and I'll say it again, this reminds me so much of college sports now, and big time college sports, football, men's basketball, because the whole idea with NIL and the way that some of these schools have taken it and interpreted it and kind of made it next level, where they can pay their top players $7, $8, $9 million under NIL, the guise of NIL. It's thinly veiled pay to play. Essentially, you get a big time booster, a corporate partner that's worth millions and is willing to sign an endorsement deal with your top player, where that guy maybe has to sign some autographs or has to show up and do a commercial or some type of a promotional advertisement, or maybe they use his name to say, hey, this is where this quarterback shops for his cars, or we provide the vehicle, the wheels for this defensive lineman, whatever the case is. But what they're really doing is just funneling money into that guy's pocket, and he doesn't really have to work for it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of endorsing that's going on. Instead, it's just about a way to put it down on paper so it looks like an endorsement, but the money essentially is paying him to play for that university. Now, that right now is allowed under the bylaws. There's really not a whole lot the NCAA can do about it. That's why they're trying to find some way to regulate what is the wild, wild west of college sports and college football. But in the NBA, there are regulations that prevent against this and that make this type of thing against the rules. And So at this point, the NBA, it feels like they're just looking for a way to excuse Steve Ballmer as opposed to actually hold him accountable. It's gross. And maybe I, in this case, am being cynical and skeptical, but I feel like I should be have a healthy skepticism. I should be a little suspicious when it comes to something like this because it is the league investigating one of its own members. And yeah, you follow pro sports long enough and you recognize that sometimes these organizations do circle the wagon so that they can put a lid on whatever scandal there is. They don't really want to out one of their own, so they'll do what they can to protect him. And if you're Adam Silver, as much as your responsibility is to the fans and is to competitive balance and all that jazz, you are employed by the owners. So I don't want to be naive in this situation, just assume that, oh yeah, there's no evidence, because I feel like there's plenty of evidence, circumstantial or not, that would prove that Steve Ballmer, that would indicate that Steve Ballmer was playing fast and loose with the rules. So kind of disappointed in the NBA in this situation. Love the fact that our comment section is blowing up. So thank you to all of you who have participated during our live stream and are weighing in with your questions. The fact that you are hanging out with us while we're doing the show live is actually an encouragement to me. I appreciate that. But you can also connect with us on social media. Love to have the conversation continue. And as we get closer to football season, man, the intensity and the sense of urgency really ratchets up. As always, I appreciate producer Zach, though I should say that more often. My thanks to producer Zach, who's working so hard behind the scenes to make sure that our clips are up and the podcast is posted and that I look as good as he can possibly make me look. So thank you. We're nearly through week 3. Oh my gosh. So happy almost Friday. We will connect with you on the Friday that is ahead here on YouTube and Rogue Media Network.